Yo, what's poppin', guys? Today we got the absolute scientifically proven best deck for the Synchro event. It's Ursarctics. So basically what this deck does is it plays in a really unique way, and your end board will be a Septentrion, which negates the effects of face-up monsters without a level that were special summoned from the extra deck. To clarify on this is Exceed monsters, which have a rank and not a level, and Link monsters, which have a link level or whatever it's called. I don't know. It's not a level. Monsters that have a level from the extra deck would be fusion and synchro monsters. This doesn't floodgate main decks either. So you might be thinking, wait a minute, if you're playing the synchros, then in this event, your opponent will be playing either fusion or exceeds. So it's a super gamble, right? If we're playing against an exceed deck, they lose. They can't do anything, right? But if we're playing against a fusion deck, what are we going to do? And that's where the new support comes in. The Ursarctic Polar Star lets you cheat out the Septentrion or another one of your synchros, and it adds the effect to that monster. Your opponent cannot activate the effects of monsters with a level that were special summoned from the extra deck. So what you can do here is you can end on the Septentrion, and it will floodgate all leveled and non-leveled monsters from the extra deck. Now, of course, we have some other fun plays to do. We have the Deep Sea Diva, which you'll see the line in just a bit. It'll give you a bunch of fodder for your Ursarctics. It can let you go into an early Baron, and it can help you extend. It can go straight into the Polary here, or even the Polar Star, since these two also have a level difference of 1. And all around, I had a blast playing this, so let's hop straight into the replay. Alright, so we're going to be playing through Disruption. We're going to have some going second, some games where we come out of a grind game after bricking. So for this one, we're going to lead with the Big Dipper. Normally you search this as part of your combo. We're just going to lead with it to go ahead and start stacking up some counters on it. If you have 7 counters on it, you get to just steal one of your opponent's monsters forever, which is pretty cool. So since unfortunately our McPolar gets negated, we're going to have to sack off our Nib, but we still get to bring out the Septentrion by effect of the Polar Star. So this means this does have the added effect. You can see if I click on the Polar Star, nothing pops up, but if I click on the Septentrion, you'll see it says Influence, and normally you can look at like Exceed monster materials or something, but here if we click on Influence, it'll show us that we are being influenced by the Polar Star because we gain this additional effect. Now, if they negate the Polar Star, like on their turn, right? Like they draw into Imperm or they droplets it, whatever, Septentrion still keeps his effect because this is now tied to this card. It's similar to the Labyrinth Field spell. So right now they are completely floodgated out of the extra deck here. And it turns out they're playing fusions. So it's a good thing we made it with the Polar Star because fusions are leveled. Fast forward here a bit, and unfortunately they do find an out here. We're gonna pop the Septentrion. It's unfortunately no protection on it. If you end on only the Septentrion, you have other ways of getting some protection, and fortunately our opponent does brick. So what we're going to do here is we actually draw into the Diva, which is crazy. And we know that Diva will win in the simplified game state because it gives us a ton of advantage, and we can just make a Baron or something, and that just, it's basically a top deck situation at this point. So it kind of just clears. So we really want this to resolve, which is why we're going to lead off with the Polar Star, and we're going to get out our Grand Chariot here. This card does absolutely nothing. He has to have cards in his hand. And the Chariot, if it's special summoned, you get to pop 2 cards. And it also gives you targeting protection. Lets you negate an effect that targets an Urza card. And because we made it with the Polar Star, this Grand Chariot will also be floodgating leveled monsters, so the fusions from the extra deck. Now we clear these cards, just get rid of them. Now we just go for the standard Diva stuff. Dump Dragoons to add Atlantean. Then we use the Dump Dragoons to grab another Atlantean. Tatsunoko lets you synchro from the hand. We go straight into a Baron, pop his monster, and we swing for a ton of damage. He can't activate the effects of fusion monsters. We have an Omni Negate. We get to steal a special summon monster, and he's on a top deck situation, so he's going to scoop here. Here we actually open crazy hand. We even have the trap, which I was trying out, which even in the event, it's just not worth it. It's so bad. The funny thing is, if your Ursarctic Synchro monster is destroyed by an opponent's attack, you can activate this, and your opponent must shuffle cards into the deck. So the total number of cards on field, hand, and graveyard is 7, but that's a whole bunch. They get to just choose where the cards are from, so they can recycle their full graveyard. And just put back like worthless cards they don't need. If we got to choose from where, maybe, but this way it's just not good at all, and the effects that it has on the field are just too slow. It might come up in like some super grindy states, but honestly it'll never come up, and I cut this for MAUL Glacium, which we'll see in some later replays. Anyways, the Diva line here, again, we get the Neptibus, and this lets us go into a Synchro 3 or a Synchro 1, actually, which is super interesting. And since we have a way to play here already, we're going to be searching for the Radiation. Radiation, whenever we summon an Urza, we remove one of the 7 counters that are initially placed on it to draw a card, not once per turn. So you just draw 7 cards in your turn potentially. And here, instead of extending into something even crazier, we're going to decide to play around the Nibiru here by making a Baron on our 5th summon. This is a surprise tool that will help us later. Departure is discard 1, search 2 names. And just going to start summoning and drawing cards. Polari here. Getting the field spell. A quick note on this, if you think they have like a Gamma or some other negate to negate the Polari, you can chain block it with Radiation. Otherwise, if you are afraid of drawing into the Big Dipper, you can actually chain link 1 the Radiation, chain link 2 Polari to set this from the deck and then not draw into it. Otherwise, you are sad. Going to accrue a ton of advantage here, draw a bunch of cards. Synchro Overtake is here to add the Diva to your hand to normal summon it, which we already did this turn. So we're just going to grab a free body here. Draw a bunch of cards. And we're going to go for the Polar Star effect twice, as you can see, because this is not a once per turn, not even a soft once per turn. Normally you would have to attribute this card and a level 8 Ursarctic monster, but you get to use the Big Dipper here to cheat out, which here it is. If you would, if your Ursarctic monster would tribute a monster to activate its effect, you can instead banish an Urza from your graveyard. So that way you get to use the cheated effect of the field spell once per turn, and then its own effect, and then you tribute it, and that way you get out the Septentrion, which will floodgate non-leveled and leveled monsters from the extra deck, and the Grand Chariot, which also now floodgates leveled monsters from the extra deck, as well as giving you targeting protection, making the Septentrion that much harder to out. Now go into the Tatsunoko, and I decide to go into the Ice Jade here for protection. Oh, looky here, they do have the Nibiru. We're going to shuffle something back in the end phase. And now we're going to suffer from crippling depression after we use the Baron to get another disruption on field and then get evenly matched. So we're going to use the Quint charge here to just grab a guy back. The Ice Jade's protection effect actually does not protect you from evenly matched because you are the person that is removing the cards and not your opponent. And if I banish the evenly match from the field, I lose my whole field. So now we have the Septentrion blocking off their entire extra deck, fortunately. And we can actually play again on the next turn. So we're going to summon out our Polar for our Ursatron here. This will grab us a Departure. And now that we've set this up, we're now going to normal summon the Ash Blossom to go into the Baron that we returned. And the game is just over at this point. Quick peek at our heroes deck list. Yeah, deserved. This game, our opening hand is unfortunately not as beautiful as you would love to have it, so we're just going to pass on Fenrir. I have an Ash Blossom in hand, and we're just coping really hard, honestly. Our opponent is playing Fusions, so this could be really good for us if we get to Ash or Branded Fusion, or really bad if they just just extend past it. They make the Chimera Ecclesia to pop it, set 3 cards, and pass. So let's see what we can do with this. We draw into the McPolar, which is amazing. We're going to have the radiation here to chain block everything and just draw some more cards. So here the radiation chain blocks our search. We're going to draw a card here. It's just fodder. We search for the Megapolar. This is the one where you get to target a spell trap your opponent controls and destroy it. That'll help us force some disruption out. I'm going to search for the slider to help us extend our plays. I'm going to summon this out, and we're going to target a back row here, chain block it by drawing another card as well, and they're going to start flipping stuff. So there's the Predaplanting here, so we'll send a dude, and then I'll put a Predator counter on my guys, making them all level 1s, really screwing me over, honestly, and they have Trap Trick as well. Now, this is kind of awkward, since my guys are all level 1 now. However, I have this secret forbidden line to play around this, which is just hard-making Martial Metal Marcher. Hilarious. And they go into the ambulance. This guy doesn't actually have an effect here. However, the Predaplanting triggers to pop one of my cards, which will be my Megapolar. Fine, I can probably live with this. I'm going to search some more follow-up here. We have another name here. Get to draw another card. And they actually have another quick play to fuse again. And we rip into Diva, which just wins the game. This guy can only tribute monsters with Predator counters on them to negate effects, which there are no monsters with Predator counters, so we're fine here. And if this gets destroyed, you get to revive a dark monster, including itself. Which is once per turn and only on fusion summon monsters. So if he revives himself, he's only coming back 1 time. Now I'm just going to do the standard line here. Diva's going to get me some bodies, some fodder in my hand. And this actually lets you make Polari, getting me another draw, getting me the field spell. The slider brings back the missing level for the Polar Star. And we're going to be using the Polar Star with Big Dipper to get out a Chariot. It's going to pop his monster, which is going to come back, of course. And then, since Polar Star and Grand Chariot both are once per turns, we're going to do it again. And to find lethal, we go into Psychic and Punisher, gain the attack boost, and swing for game. Very cool duel to show off, playing through some disruption, pretty much just with your engines. As well as some really interesting lines you can make with the toolbox synchros in your extra deck. In this replay, we're going to lead with the radiation, of course, but then we go Mectanus first to feel out an imperm. I should be chain blocking this with radiation because this is the only card in our deck that actually loses to Ghost Spell. That would be really dumb if this gets negated by that. If it gets negated by imperm, we're super chilling because we still have the McPolar here. So we're going to go ahead and fire that off, go for the standard line, speed it up a little bit, and we just draw into the card we searched. So that's kind of sad, but it happens. It's still a body. We could have it for follow-up as well. Bring out the Polari here for the Big Dipper. Draw some more cards. Summon a bunch of guys here. And this is where they decide to nib us. So this deck actually can't play through Nib in engine, but we do find our anti-Nib engine. We still have our normal summon left, funnily enough. And we're just going to grab a bunch of bodies here. Go for the Polar Star. And we're going to make the Grand Chariot. Now this is a hilarious play. Because we have so many counters on this, we can actually just steal the Nib. I did this because it was funny. It would have been more correct to just use the Grand Chariot to pop it. That way I get to keep my counters on this and don't have to start reaccruing all my counters, and we have that for another disruption earlier in their turn. Should have also put the Septentrion in the extra monster zone here. So we basically just lost 2 zones just for the lulz. And looks like they're going to be playing some Kashtira stuff here. Gonna summon this out. If they summon a monster, we get to search an Urza, Now, he intentionally targets the Nib here because he can't target the Ursas, or I will just negate and destroy his guy. Could also hit the Nib token, I think. Not sure why I didn't do that. Monster Reborn coming out here. And now he goes into the big eye, thinking he can take the Nib. Doesn't realize that Septentrion just turns it off. And we win. Alright, this game, we unfortunately open our target for the Deep Sea Diva. Fortunately, we can still summon it and get a lot of the same advantage off of this. So, one of our fodders and a MAUL Glacier here, we're already able to play. So, we're just going to go for a line like that. Go for the radiation, since we do have an 8 in rotation already. So, we can go for a bit of a greedier line. Now we're just going to keep comboing here a little bit. And there's a slight misplay here. Unfortunately, they just get to recycle a guy because they pitch a Diabolica. But the slight misplay here is where I'm going to make the Chariot off of my Polar Star right here. And what I should have done is I should have used its effect to pop the Neptibus. This thing is in attack position, so they could just smack into it for a ton of damage. It has no effect, and it clogs up a monster zone, preventing me from using my Big Dipper to steal a monster or to summon out another guy. So I feel like that's definitely a misplay. We clear up one of our zones by searching for an 8 here, and we're going to pitch one of our Divas just to get all 3 8s in rotation. So we have more options, recycling our one of Polar Star. And it's off to the races. They're going to start playing here. They have a bunch of stuff they can do. And unfortunately, they do get to make a Chimera with a polymerization in the graveyard. So this is kind of an issue for me. Fortunately, it can't activate because I have 2 things floodgating it. Both of these were made with the Polar Star. You know, a bunch of guys on the field here. And here's where I get kind of screwed by missing a zone. What I could have done is I could have summoned a guy out to banish. Where's the targeting protection one? This one, right? Yeah. So this one lets them negate a targeting effect. So what I could have done is we summon the Megabilis, banish it from the graveyard, and then we can trigger our Big Dipper to actually just steal this monster away. Could have been huge. Unfortunately, Big Dipper gets negated and destroyed, which really sucks because it has quite a few beneficial effects for us. So that's gone now. They're going to add this back to their hand again. Use it again, fuse this off, go for a Chimera, the Illusion Beast, and now they threaten battle phase, so we're going to target this, and they already used the target negate, but they do still have, here we go, your monster your opponent controls activates its effect. You can banish this card from your graveyard, negate that effect, and this guy changes his name. So in order to not let him negate that, we're going to chain block this with the radiation, the last counter on it. It'll flip it face down. We don't care about any of these things that he's destroying right now. He's still floodgated by Grand Chariot. Put back the Septentrion because I only run one of them. You should probably run 2. And we have the Synchro Overtake here. Just special guy back from the graveyard. Make a Baron. You can see the MAUL Glacier popping up in the top right corner. That's its effect here. If this face-up card leaves the field, skip the battle phase of your next turn. Important information, not this turn, it's the next turn. I still get my battle phase this turn, so I will be going for lethal here. So how do we go for lethal? He has a targeting protection, but we have something that removes the targeting stuff. I'm gonna grab a second radiation here. Gonna make the Polar Star. Summon out the Megabilis by using the secret effect of Departure. You get to banish it from the graveyard instead of tributing an Ursarctic. So this card now gets banished. We get to use the Changing here to banish even more cards. So we're going to get rid of this annoying effect, get rid of the untargetable thing, and the Mega Billis is going to clear the Chimera fusion to keep him from recurring it here. Baron's going to pop our radiation, so we get to place another one because we're cool like that, and we have the Septentrion to pop his entire board anyways. Chain blocking this as well, and now we swing for game. Last but not least, we're going to be leading off with the Diva here. We're going to start off with this, and it'll get ashed. Now, this does give us a bunch of advantage, and it lets us beat a hand trap, but this is a hand trap that we just beat, and now we can just go into our normal plays here. Gonna go for the McPolar here, and I'm going to try to be conscious of having the MAUL Glacier in hand and trying to get exactly 5 waters into the graveyard. So I was doing some calculations in my head. If I grab Slider, I can revive the Mega Billis and still do my combo. But I was kind of miscounting how many waters I get engraved, and I wasn't sure, and I just went to the further departure. This does lose me the Ash Blossom, unfortunately, but it does get me more names in rotation. Here I was thinking, oh yeah, I can use the Mictanus, but I mean, I have to tribute it off. I don't know what I was thinking. But it'll still work out in the end. Get the Big Dipper here. Now it's going to let me banish another guy to summon back a guy. We have 2 in graveyard now. And now we're going to be synchroing these 2 off for a Martial Metal Marcher, because this lets me pull out 1 more water from my graveyard here. Now we're at 3, and if I synchro 2 of them off, we'll have exactly 5. I get to hand rip 2 guys here. A Talons, huge hit, and a Bestial. Now I know they're on fusions, so we're going to sack these 2. Just floodgate everything anyways. And they lost 3 cards from their hand, right? The Ash Blossom that they used, the 2 that we ripped. They can't use leveled or non-leveled monsters, so if they are for some reason just playing Bestials in an Exceed deck, they're still screwed. This does nothing, but we also get to steal one of their monsters, and we get to have either the Crow, Book of Moon, or MST that we get to search off of Septentrion here. And they just realize it and surrender. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed watching the video. I hope you learned something. This deck is super fun to play. It's also very inexpensive. You only have 1 ultra rare technically. If you want to start playing the deck, you should definitely run a second one. In the event, Shen never came up for me. You can also consider cutting the Adrian maybe. The rest you kind of have to keep. You really want 2 Polari. 1 Polar Star is enough. Tatsunoko is huge with the Diva line because it gets you a 7 in hand and just lets you make a Baron super early off of this. Metal Marcher, as you saw, came up a bunch of times, which I personally wasn't expecting. The Deep Sea card, it doesn't really matter. If you have the other Deep Sea Diva Synchro, it's an ultra rare, you can run that to flex on them. You don't ever really make this. It's only there because it's a Synchro monster that mentions Deep Sea Diva, and Synchro Overtake is just fusion deployment for Synchros. You just need a Synchro in your extra deck that mentions the Deep Sea Diva, so you can add it to your hand. So you have to run this. You should run 2 Septentrion. 2 Grand Chariot is great because it's not a once per turn. You can just pop a bunch of stuff. It's also a soft once per turn on the protection effect, so multiples are really, really great here. Croco Dragon comes up a bunch in like simplified game states and stuff. Sometimes you need to out certain cards. Sometimes you just need that extra draw, or you need to get something into your graveyard for one of your lines. Shen is pretty good into stuff like Snake Eyes or stuff that needs the graveyard, like Runic. But that's not really a thing in this event, at least. I've made it on ladder a few times, but I didn't even consider it during the event. Baron, obviously huge. If this gets banned like it does in the TCG, then I mean, obviously we're not going to run it, right? But making this early to play around stuff like Nibiru, as you guys saw, huge. Lots of value. Chenging is great. Outs non-targeting stuff, non-targetable stuff, as you saw, came up, was huge, was my only... Well, I guess I could have made a pep that was bigger than it as well, actually. That would have worked too. But is great for stuff that can't be targeted. Just get rid of it. Get rid of stuff from the graveyard for some disruptions. You can trigger this super easily as well, because your Big Dipper banishes instead of you tributing stuff. Also, you can use Megabilis to banish stuff, and there's probably something else that I'm missing. Adrian, I mean, I have this card. I was playing this in a different variant of the deck before. It's pretty cool. It can give you some interesting protection and disruption, but it's probably the least necessary of these. You already have 2 other 10 targets, and the deck doesn't inherently make them. You need to use like your extra engine. And the pep, you saw it came up. It's pretty big. It can be really troublesome for some decks to deal with, so I'd recommend having this. For the main deck, you really only need like the Ursa cards, right? Deep Sea package requires 1 ultra rare and a few supers, so also Synchro Overtake, and just fill this stuff up here. I have Nib because it's a hand trap that's level 7 or higher. Ash because this like it hits every deck. You can use the 3+7 to make your 10s. Pankrotop's nice going second like the Fenrir is, and it's also level 7 and higher. There's a bunch of options you can take in this deck. There's also like the Punk version. There's an Ice Jade version of the deck. If you guys have any questions, leave them below in the comments, and I'll be sure to get to them. And I'll try to upload the rest of my backlog as soon as possible. All right, see you guys. Thanks for watching.